The Las Vegas sky that night hadn't even changed color. But the octagon was already exploding. It only took 80 seconds for Pereira to prove again why he's called Poatan, the stone-fisted Brazilian who has become the division's most feared threat, like UFC heavyweight Magomed Ankalaev. The Russian fighter, who was touted as the most serious threat to make the cut, instead became the latest victim. A single overhand right landed, followed by a hail of punches and elbows until the referee had no choice but to save Ankalaev from his own nightmare. And as soon as Pereira stood, the gold belt was back around his waist. The MMA world was immediately in an uproar over who would be his next opponent. Welcome to Inspiration MMA. Here, we're not just talking about fighting, but also about the steely mentality, courage, and fighting spirit of true fighters. Because in the world of MMA, every punch has a story, and every victory is born from relentless struggle. Let's get started. Who would be crazy enough to climb into the octagon and face this monster? This quick victory not only made highlight reels explode on social media, but also opened up a new debate among fans and analysts. Many are calling this the final proving ground for Pereira. Not just a former elite kickboxer, but a true predator in the 205 lb division. At 38 years old, his performance is even more crazier. The first name to immediately come to the fore is Jiří Procházka, a fighter from the Czech Republic, who just defeated Khalil Rondry Jr. on the same night. Two brutal wins in one event have fans immediately dreaming of a second fight between Procházka and Pereira. Their first meeting was a bloody affair that ended with Pereira's victory. But you know how eccentric Jiří is, like a samurai who can't rest until he's avenged his defeat. Then there's Carlos Ulberg, the blackjack from New Zealand who's on fire right now. He's already defeated 3 big names in the top 10 light heavyweights over the past year. This fighter has a fast, sharp, and confident striking style, like a younger version of Pereira himself. If the UFC is looking for a fresh new fight, Ulberg is clearly the most logical candidate. And of course, quite a few of my friends said that life deserved a second chance, even though he lost quickly. His rankings and overall performance have led some to believe that the 80-second result isn't the full story. But in reality, after such a brutal beating, the UFC will likely need a very compelling reason to give him a trilogy fight anytime soon. With Pereira's leg still recovering from a long-standing injury, it's understandable that the UFC hasn't been quick to announce his next opponent. But the MMA world never sits still. Just as the round-robin victory celebration was over, a name emerged that set the atmosphere on fire, and it wasn't from the light heavyweight division. Yep, Khamzat Chimaev, his coach's undefeated monster, who had just won the UFC middleweight title after defeating Dresius to the places at UFC 319. With a unanimous decision, Chimaev immediately issued a statement on social media that subtly but clearly stated that he wanted to settle old scores with Pereira. There had been tension between the two fighters, and fans still remember how Chimaev once taunted Pereira and said he would conquer every division. And now that the middleweight belt is locked up, he's ready to move up a weight class to try and take on the giants up there. Judging by their fighting styles, this will be a brutally contrasting duel. Guys, Pereira is a pure striker, one of the most lethal kickboxers in UFC history. Of his 12 fights, 9 have ended by knockout. Every hand or foot strike from Pereira can wreak havoc. He doesn't just beat his opponents, he sends them to the brink of death. Meanwhile, Chimaev is the complete opposite. This fighter was born in the world of grappling. He likes to drag his opponents to the mat, pin them down like a hungry crocodile, and doesn't stop until they give up or run out of breath. His power is incredible, his speed is insane, and his mentality, well, in one word, barbaric. The big question is whether Chimaev can withstand the pounding long enough to take the fight to the ground, because if he fails, he could be the next real highlight reel victim. But on the other hand, if he manages to take Pereira down, it's not impossible that we could see the light heavyweight king forced to submit for the first time in the division. The combination of Pereira versus May is clearly not just an ordinary duel. It's a fight that will take the UFC to another level of marketing. Two big names, two different nations, two extreme styles all meeting in one place. Hungry to prove themselves in terms of hype. This could even surpass duels between other champions, which are often just formalities, belt versus belt. But friends, for Pereira, it's probably not just about defending his belt. After slaughtering 2 generations of light heavyweight fighters, from Prochaska to Ankalaev, Pereira has started talking about bigger things. He doesn't want to just reign supreme in one division. He wants to make history, and to do that, he has to move up a weight class. In his mind, the real challenge isn't Chimaev, or even Albert, but the giants above the heavyweight division. He wants a super fight, something that can leave a permanent mark on UFC history.
Thanks for congratulating me, but all I want is a super fight. I want to fight at heavyweight.
It's a wonder if Poatan actually moves up to heavyweight. A fighter who already possesses incredible power at 205 lbs. He'll gain even more power without having to lose much weight. Opponents like Thomas Bino, Cyril Jen, and even John Jones could be targets that could make the UFC explode in terms of PPV sales. But of course, all of that can only happen after his physical condition has fully recovered. With his right leg having been problematic, his medical team and trainers will likely hold off on such a big move. But the momentum won't stop until the MMA world knows he's not just a 2-division champion. He's the most lethal fighter ever to stand in the modern octagon. As soon as news of Alex Pereira's intention to move up to heavyweight began to spread, the MMA world was immediately shocked. But amidst the euphoria, one of the most influential voices in the UFC finally spoke out, Dana White. And as usual, with his blunt style, the UFC president gave a strong signal that moving up 2 weight classes wasn't something he would give the green light to easily. From Dana IDE's perspective, Pereira's move up to heavyweight is more like a crazy project than a realistic plan. He understands that this isn't just a weight class change. It's a 40-pound jump from his original middleweight weight, something that's already extraordinary in boxing, let alone in the brutally high-stakes world of MMA. For Dana, that's like jumping from one cliff to another without a bridge. He believes Pereira still has a lot of unfinished business in the light heavyweight division. Dana, he says, still has a backlog of fights that could generate significant hype for the UFC. There's Jerry Prochaska, who's still intriguing, Carlos Ulbert, who's rapidly climbing to the top, and there's even the possibility of a rematch with Ankalaev if the time is right. From a promotional perspective, these are all gold medal fights. And why rush to move when the money and challenges are still strewn across the division? But on the other hand, Dana White can't deny that Pereira is different from most fighters. He doesn't play it safe, never thinking about the risks of a long career or a spotless record. Pereira is a sensation-hungry fighter who wants to make history in the craziest ways possible from a business perspective. That makes Dana's head spin, but the UFC's wallet happy. Because every time Poatan's name is mentioned, PPV numbers inevitably go up. So while Dana's tone may sound a bit reserved, many feel he's actually just biding his time.
Probably that he was a middleweight. He was a middleweight, and he's going to jump up 2 weight classes in the UFC. It's not like jumping up 2 weight classes in boxing. It's a big jump. I just don't see why, unless he wants to retire, why throwing him in at heavyweight.
The UFC has long wanted to hold a major super fight at heavyweight, especially since John Jones's long absence and Francis Ngannou's withdrawal. Imagine if Poatan actually moved up there. It wouldn't just be an interdivisional clash. It would be one of the most explosive events in modern UFC history. For now, Dana White seems to want to hold off on that move. The priority is clearly to keep Pereira at light heavyweight, fight 1 or 2 big names, and continue building hype before actually being given a ticket to the heavyweight division. For now, all eyes are on 2 men, Pereira, who is resting but already has sky-high ambitions, and Dana White, who is contemplating whether to grant permission or hold off for now. But if a heavyweight fight actually happens, the UFC won't just make history. They'll drop a bombshell that will shake the entire MMA world.